Do you ever feel like work-life balance is somehow a lovely concept they pitch to us like some exclusive club we can only dream of joining? They say you're supposed to clock out and relax as if that's the thing you can do when your job is lurking in your brain 24/7 like some dark existential horror. Work-life balance is the grown-up version of Santa Claus where you know you're not getting any presents, only burnout. Work-life balance is a feel-good myth that keeps us dangling just productive enough to keep checking emails at midnight and maybe not shoot yourself in the face while you're at it. You've closed up your laptop after a long day and for once you think you're free. You kick back, maybe even light a candle, whispering sweet nothings to the universe about how tonight you'll finally relax. Ding, an email arrives, subject line quick update, urgent, and you know you're going to open it because ignoring it is a one-way ticket to a next day friendly reminder. That's about as friendly as a parking ticket. This is work-life balance in 2024. Emails in the bath, meetings in the car, and a relationship with your phone that's honestly starting to feel like a Stockholm Syndrome. Now let's get to why we actually put up with this absurdity. Psychologists call it boundary erosion. Sounds fancy, right? Seriously, these psychohazards sometimes just sound like prestige. Anyways, what it basically means is we've let work slither into every crevice of our lives like some overbearing houseguest who never leaves. And here's the kicker. It's partly because of our brain's warped reward system. Every time we respond to an after-hours message, our brain releases a little hit of dopamine like a digital Pavlovian dog, trained to drool every time our phone dings. And no treats for you, we're just rewarded with more work. We've essentially become rats pressing a lever, hoping for cheese, but it's just another spreadsheet. But here's where it gets bleak. Nietzsche had this idea about how people chained themselves to meaningless tasks to avoid staring into the void. And what's modern work if not the perfect void filler? We're so desperate to avoid silence and boredom that we chain ourselves to the machine, convincing ourselves that endless productivity will lead to, what? A trophy? Inner peace? Meaning? We've become sleepwalking productivity zombies, terrified of confronting the idea that just maybe there's more to life than back-to-back meetings and color-coded calendars. But hey, keep hustling, right? And here's the hilarious, tragic irony of it all. We claim to want balance, yet the second we get a taste of free time, we spiral. Have you ever tried doing nothing? It's terrifying. You'll find yourself grabbing your phone, checking emails, reorganizing your sock drawer, anything to avoid just existing. We've built this whole culture on the idea of busyness, so when there's even a sliver of free time, we panic, fill it with work, and then complain about how tired we are. We're basically afraid of ourselves at this point, so we hide behind the keys of productivity, clinging to our calendars like lifeboat in an ocean of existential dread. What else could symbolize the grim splendor of a soul bound to the ceaseless churn of labor? This notion of balance is but an oasis on the horizon, shimmering with the promise of rest, only to vanish when approached. Here we are, each one of us carrying the weight of tasks like Atlas, yet ever yearning for that fleeting whisper of release. Perhaps it is this very yearning, this cruel cycle of demand and surrender, that stirs in us the strange affection for our burdens, clinging even to those chains that bind us, lest we face the silence beyond. There lies a peculiar grandeur in the spectacle, as spirits dance with duty, striving by day and sighing by night, forever hoping that next week, next day, next moment he may finally breathe without labor's shadow. And yet, despite the fatigue, we are drawn forward by the alluring thought that somehow, someday, there might be equilibrium, yet it remains a perpetually unlit candle just out of reach. Our lives are filled with visions of peace, health, and leisure that glimmer on the periphery, calling us forward like sirens, though we know, in some quiet recess of the mind, that they are little more than illusions. And so we tread on, locked in a cycle that celebrates itself, repeating with such fervor that we almost forget to question it. Each dawn renews the struggle, each dusk extends the hope of liberation, and each of us caught in this delicate dance finds our joy, and the dream of balances serves only to deepen our devotion to the toil. Psychologist Susan David emphasized shifting our understanding of balance to something dynamic rather than a perfect 50-50 split. Instead, consider balance as an ongoing adjustment, a flow that changes depending on personal needs, responsibilities, and energy levels. The goal isn't perfect equilibrium at all times, but rather responsiveness, prioritizing certain aspects of life when they require more focus, and gracefully shifting back as needs change. Balance is not a static state but a process of adapting to life's ebbs and flows. It also helps to implement an unplug ritual to signal to the brain that work has ended. Many people feel work-related stress lingering because they lack a clear mental and physical transition from work to personal time. Creating a routine that marks the end of your workday can help establish a mental boundary, giving your brain permission to unwind and recharge. Dr. Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist, stresses the importance of defining personal boundaries and clearly communicating them with colleagues and managers. Establishing boundaries is essential to protect personal time and reduce burnout, yet it requires intentional effort and open communication to make these boundaries understood and respected. Achieving a healthy work-life balance is more about strategic choices and intentional habits than reaching a perfect state. Remember, balance isn't straightforward, but burnout sure is.